Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling that one big question that's on so many people's minds. How can you really tell if it worked? We're going to break down the science and the very first signs right from day one. So you're in that 2-week wait, and all you can think about is, did it happen? Is it even possible to know if conception occurred before you can take a pregnancy test? Well, the answer is a big yes, if you know what subtle clues to look for in your own body. All right, let's get right into it. To really understand the very first signs of a potential pregnancy, we have to rewind a little bit and go back to the starting line, ovulation. This is the biological event that kicks the whole thing off. Okay, so for most people who have a pretty regular cycle, let's say somewhere between 28 and 32 days, ovulation usually happens right around day 14. And when we say day 14, we're counting from the very first day of your period. Think of this as the starting gun for the whole process. This brings us to what's called the fertile window. And the key word here is window. It's not just one single day, it's a whole stretch of time. Generally, your best chance to conceive is sometime between day 10 and day 20 of your cycle. This is the prime time for a sperm and egg to meet. Now, once that egg is released, it sets off on this really incredible journey. So let's follow its path from the very moment of fertilization all the way to that super important step of implantation. Okay, so here's a crucial point. You are not going to feel anything the second that fertilization happens. The sperm meeting the egg is a completely microscopic event. The physical symptoms we're all looking for, they only start after a whole chain of events has taken place, which takes about a good 6 or 7 days. So here's what that journey actually looks like on a timeline. Around day 14, you have ovulation. Then, within about 24 hours, fertilization can happen. For the next 5 or 6 days, this brand new embryo is traveling down the fallopian tube. And finally, somewhere between day 20 and 24, it reaches the uterus and begins the all-important process of implantation. Implantation. This is the main event. It's the moment that little embryo snuggles in and attaches to the uterine lining. And that attachment is what flips the switch, triggering a huge hormonal cascade. We're talking estrogen, estrogen, progesterone, and of course that famous pregnancy hormone, HCG. These are the hormones that cause all the early signs we're about to get into. Okay, now for the part you've been waiting for. Once implantation happens, what are the first physical clues you might notice? Let's zoom right in on the two most direct signs, implantation bleeding and cramping. The first major clue is something called implantation bleeding. See, when the embryo attaches to the uterine wall, it can disturb some tiny little blood vessels there, and that can cause a little bit of spotting. But the big question is, how do you know it isn't just your period showing up early? Well, the difference is pretty stark. Implantation spotting is nothing like a regular period. The color is usually a light pink or even brown, not red. The flow is super, super light. We're talking maybe just a few spots here and there. And it typically only lasts for a day or so, and it's often on and off. That's totally different from a continuous period flow that lasts for several days. Now, along with that spotting, you might feel a little something in your lower abdomen. This is known as implantation cramping, and believe it or not, it feels very different from your typical menstrual cramps. Yeah, we're not talking about that intense, painful cramping you might be used to. Instead, people often describe it as a sweet, mild kind of pain. Some say it feels like a little flutter or a slight pull or twinge. It can be so subtle that you might only notice it if you're resting and really paying attention to your body. So once that embryo has implanted and the hormones start to kick in, the effects start to ripple throughout your entire body. Let's take a look at some of the other ways this big hormonal shift can show up. First up, mood swings. That sudden surge of hormones can feel like you're on a total emotional roller coaster. You might find yourself laughing your head off one minute and then suddenly tearing up over a TV commercial the next, all for no obvious reason. It's a really common early response to those rapid hormonal changes. Okay, here's a more scientific sign you can actually track. Your basal body temperature, or BBT. This is just your body's lowest temperature when you're fully at rest, and it can tell you an awful lot about what's going on inside. So here's how it works. After you ovulate, the hormone progesterone makes your temperature go up just a little bit. Now, if you're not pregnant, your temperature will drop right before your period starts. But, and this is the key, if you are pregnant, your progesterone levels stay high, which means your temperature stays high too. So, if your temperature stays elevated for more than 2 weeks after you ovulated, that is a very, very strong clue. Beyond those big primary signs, that new hormonal cocktail that's brewing in your system can trigger a few other classic early pregnancy symptoms. So let's run through some of the other things you might start to experience. One of the very first things your body does is start getting ready for a potential baby. And a lot of that preparation starts with the breasts. Those hormones get right to work, which can make your breasts feel really tender or swollen or just extra sensitive. You might even notice your nipples getting a bit darker or more prominent. And believe it or not, the list goes on. All that increased blood flow to your pelvic area can put a little pressure on your bladder, which means you might find yourself running to the bathroom more often. Your senses can go into overdrive, making you super sensitive to smells or tastes. And yeah, headaches and even some mild nausea can also pop up as your body gets used to all these new changes. So, if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's that while there are a lot of possible signs, the most direct and reliable clues you can get before a missed period are the ones tied directly to implantation. So that's the spotting and the mild cramping, and that sustained rise in your basal body temperature. And that's our breakdown of the very earliest signs of conception. It's such a fascinating process, full of these subtle signals and powerful hormonal shifts. So now that you know exactly what to look for, the question is, are you recognizing any of these changes yourself? Thanks for tuning in.